Want to start off by congratulating our women's soccer team. Awesome for coaching the team. The good win over Tennessee to advance. Coach Roby and the wrestling team beating up on Missouri, a top 10 group. Awesome. Congratulations to those guys. Well deserved. We had a good bye week. Got some guys a little bit healthier. Did some recruiting. Got some young guys some work. It was needed, and I think we got the most out of it. So obviously a good opponent in Duke at night at their place, senior night. Got a good football team, well coached, playing sound, quarterbacks playing good, defense playing good, garnering takeaways. They've got some, a couple of good wins under their belt, and they've lost a couple of close ones. But we'll have our hands full over there, but our guys are looking forward to it. I'll take some questions.
You mentioned being able to get rested up last week. How do you feel this week about Drones, Tootin, Malachi Thomas?
Yeah, I think the week was good, obviously. All of them got to really back off and get extra treatment and do everything we could. They're all questionable. Again, I know I say that, but we'll have to go out there and see how things go, the next 2 days. None of them are to a point right now where I can stand here and say they're going to play. But I'm hopeful.
And you and Manny Diaz sort of have a similar background. We're going through Penn State with James Franklin. Have you ever crossed paths with him in the coaching career? And what do you think of the job he's done so far at Duke?
Yeah, we've never coached together, but we've got similar associates in the business that, and there's similarities to the style of defense and some schematics of things. I think the transition to Penn State made a lot of sense for James Franklin and for Manny with what we were running and how we were doing it. See a lot of it, in this Duke group, but excellent coach, a lot of experience. Obviously, experience at Miami as a head coach, and he's doing a nice job. I know several members of his staff, good coaches, good people. I'm not surprised to see them doing well.
Brent, you mentioned on Wednesday that Sunday's practice was going to be key for this week, especially for the guys who are coming off injury. How do you assess how they looked on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, there was progress. I think, Steve ran around pretty good. The other guys, still kind of halfway with the trainers, halfway with us. But I thought Gosnell looked pretty good.
You got a lot of young players reps. How much have you elevated some of those guys to the varsity field to get them ready for this stretch if they're needed?
Yeah, we've, I think Keelan Adams jumps out. He's a guy that the last several weeks has gotten a lot of work on the varsity field in practice. And, he's moved up the depth chart. And with the redshirt rule, he obviously has an opportunity to play if we need him to.
When you look at this Duke front, what stands out to you? Their defense, their defensive line.
Yeah, very sound. These guys play hard. I don't think there's a lot of bad steps or bad leverage. I think they're well coached. They got some depth, which helps. So they're a little bit like us. I don't know that. They've garnered takeaways. They've done well in the red zone at times. I don't know that their run defense is where they want it to be. But their pass defense is very strong. It's a good group, and I think it starts up front. And those guys, they roll pretty good with a healthy rotation. They've got experience, a couple of transfers, and some of them we're familiar with.
Obviously, this is kind of a homecoming game for Aeneas, going back to the place he was at. How excited are you for the opportunity for him? And obviously, he's playing really good football for you guys.
Yeah, I'm excited. He's a lot of his friends had moved on and graduated, but I'm sure there's folks in that program that he's close to. Maybe it's trainers and equipment managers and some guys on the team and a couple of coaches that were holdovers. But he's a great young man, and he's I'm sure, going to handle this with class, and he's got a ton of respect for his time there. He's got good memories. It was a healthy experience for him, and I think he'd feel the same way about his time here.
Brent, you mentioned Stephen Gosnell earlier. For someone who 11 months removed from the injury he suffered in the Military Bowl to be leading the team in receiving yards, what can you say about his road back and being as productive as he has been?
Yeah, first of all, I'm very proud of him. Secondly, I'm not surprised. He's got a unique way of going about things, and the determination coming out of that bowl game. Once he said, "I'm going to do this," I mean, it was 110 miles an hour to get healthy. He did everything you could possibly do that I've been around to get well and to speed up the rehab process. And then what he brings to the field, the ability to line up at a lot of different places, do a lot of different things. I think he's tough after the catch. He fights and scrapes for yards. Intelligent receiver. So I'm excited about the year he's had. We need him to finish strong, to be healthy, to help us down the stretch here. He's a really good story within our program right now.
David asked you about Duke's front, but overall as a defense, they're one of the best in the nation at creating turnovers and also limiting explosive plays. I believe they lead the ACC in fewest yards per play allowed at less than 5. What's going to be key against this defense to, one, maintain possession and be able to sustain some drives?
Yeah, I think you said it. We've got to protect the ball. We can't be careless with it. They're opportunistic. And then secondly, we've got to create some explosives. They may bend a little bit, but they don't break. I mean, they really make you earn it, and that's what good defenses do. They do a nice job with that. They've got a nice mix of pressures to create some minus yardage things, and I think their offense complements their defense.
What are some of the challenges of that offense? And they seem to have a pretty good quarterback, and it seems kind of RPO heavy that they run.
Yeah, they're RPO. They take shots down the field. They convert a fair number of those. Got good wideouts that play well, efficient routes, good ball skills. I think that the quarterback, when he's in rhythm, he's one of the better ones I've seen this year. Just kind of snap, catch, throw. And, a lot of slants and quick meshes. And then, he'll one-step it and take it downtown. Good screen package, I think, that helps neutralize some pressure. But he's playing well. And the supporting cast, particularly the wideouts, a solid tight end, got some backs that can do some things. They get in empty a bunch, some, bunch in the boundary and some quad sets. They use tempo. They make you defend a lot. They're a pretty well-rounded group.
We don't normally talk about special teams, but they've got a kid who's blocked 2 kicks this year, and it looks like they're pretty solid in the return game as well. What stands out to you about their special teams unit, and what are you guys going to have to do, in the kicking game to, maybe shore some things up that you mentioned a couple weeks ago you hadn't liked?
Yeah, I think our field goal protection is improved. That was a concern there for a couple weeks. I think we've really put some emphasis there, invested extra time, looked at personnel closely, made some adjustments. But, they got a dangerous returner. They're sound in what they do, very consistent across the board on teams. Punter, I think, maybe right behind Peter. He's right there close. So, they're productive in that group. I mean, we've got to win the special teams battle. I think, against these good teams, that's got to swing our way. And whether it's a nice return, which, we got to get our return game going better than it has. We got to eliminate penalties, in those situations. And obviously, we found a way to block a couple kicks ourselves here recently, to try and garner explosive play that way.
Any Zoom questions for Coach Pry?
On Zoom, please use the raise hand feature to ask your question for Coach Pry. Please also state your name and outlet before your question. And we'll start with Mike, please.
Hey, Coach. Mike Barber for the Virginian Pilot. I had a question. In your, the back end of this season, how much time have you spent, either yourself or as a staff, kind of recruiting guys, touching base with guys on your current roster to make sure they're in the fold going forward?
Yeah, there's certainly plenty of conversations as a staff and several with members of our team, whether it's preliminary and a few that have gotten a little more in depth. That's the reality of where we are. We had a bye week, so we had a chance to dive into some of that. Some assistants took some guys to lunch and just have a conversation. Not anything that's got to have some pressure to it. Let's just be transparent about where things are, what you're thinking. Concerns, positives, like where are you at with things. We need to get as much information as we can to help us navigate this to, have us the best roster we can.
And what kind of work, or I don't know, communication can there be? Is there between you and the collective and those kind of things on that same front?
Yeah, obviously, right now with the landscape potentially changing or likely to change, there's been a lot of conversations with the administration, with Triumph, just about what this is going to look like moving forward and how does it need and how can it look for Virginia Tech to put our best foot forward.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We'll go to David next, please.
Brent, David Teal. David Cunningham was mentioning Duke's takeaways. They've recovered more fumbles than any team in the country. Is that luck? Is there an art to it?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I always attribute it to two things. If you're an active group up front or you're a pressure team that's, you're getting on their side of the line of scrimmage to where you can cause more opportunities. And then secondly, groups that run to the ball. Things happen around the ball. If you're around the ball and the ball comes out, you got a chance to recover it. If you're not taking good angles and reacting and driving when the ball declares, ball comes out, it's not going to be yours. Obviously, there's periphery things, you got to work on stripping and punching and doing those type of things throughout the week, throughout the season, throughout the off season to create those opportunities.
And then you mentioned the changing landscape to Mike. You had talked about earlier this season that you thought the preliminary plan was to go to 105 scholarships. Is that still in the works, or has Virginia Tech and maybe even the league at large revisited that number?
Yeah, I think everybody's still kind of making some decisions there. You can have up to 105 as long as things pass like they're supposed to on your roster. So there's a roster limitation. There's no scholarship limitation. It's a little bit of a give and take on figuring out what's best for us. There's not anything unified across the ACC right now. I'm hearing some of that in other leagues. So a lot of conversations with Whit Babcock and where we want to be and what's best for us.
Have you had to tell anyone on your current roster that there simply is not room for them next season?
I have not had to do that yet, but there's been conversations about the potential of that. There's been conversations about what it looks like in the spring and then post-spring. So there's a lot to navigate with it.
Any final questions for Coach Pry on Zoom? Okay, Travis.
All right, we'll go back to the room, Andy.
I know you guys are always very focused on the week ahead. Is there something to there being this open week late in the season as sort of a 2-week sprint to the finish here that you can reset things and kind of just go about that?
Yeah, we did talk about it that way, particularly in the bye week. We got 2-game season left. Once we hit Sunday, it was all about Duke and being 1-0, and you don't want them thinking about anything beyond that. But we certainly addressed that. Let's get healthy. Let's clean some things up. Let's be a better team down the stretch here. That was talked about quite a bit and to a degree an emphasis through the bye week.
Do you bring up the goal of getting to a bowl game at all? Or is that just sort of understood?
Yeah, it's been mentioned. It's not been a focal point. Yeah, the kids understand that, but when you look at the big picture opportunity and you talk about it briefly in the bye week, that's included as part of the conversation. What's out there for us still? What can we accomplish? And that's certainly one of them.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thanks, guys.